It all started with trembling fingers and a beating heart that refused to calm. Alina sat on the edge of her narrow bed, clutching her phone as though it were her last lifeline. The ultrasound photo lay on the screen, a grainy image that still made her eyes water every time she looked at it. Proof of a new life growing inside her, proof of a mistake that had changed everything. She had meant to send it to her best friend, someone she trusted with her secret, someone who could whisper reassurances through the digital silence. But in her haze of exhaustion and panic, she tapped the wrong contact. She hit send without double-checking. The photo went off into the void. It took a few seconds before she realized. Her stomach twisted, cold sweat running down her back. She blinked at the name above the message, Mr. R. Not her best friend, not even anyone she really knew. Just a name she had seen whispered in dark corners, in news headlines that hinted at blood and power. Mr. R? The man people didn't speak about too loudly. The man who could silence anyone with a snap of his fingers. And now he had received the most private photo of her life. Her heart dropped into her stomach. She wanted to unsend, to claw the message back, but it was too late. The little notification showed it had been delivered. Then, seen. Her breath hitched. She froze, staring at the screen as if it might explode. Minutes dragged by, each one stretching like an eternity. Then a reply appeared. It wasn't words at first. It was just a single dot. Then another. Then another. He was typing. She held her breath until her chest ached. Finally, the words appeared. Whose child is this? Alina's vision blurred. She wanted to scream, to delete everything, to throw the phone across the room. Her fingers trembled as she typed back, frantic. Sorry, wrong number. Please ignore this. She hit send, praying that would be the end of it. But another reply came almost instantly. Where are you? Her blood went cold. She shook her head violently, whispering no, no, no under her breath. This couldn't be happening. Not him. Not now. She stuffed the phone under her pillow as if hiding it could erase the reality. But the buzzing started again, relentless. She couldn't ignore it. When she finally picked it up, a new message sat on the screen, sharper, colder than before. Send me your location. She dropped the phone onto the blanket, her breath ragged. Fear clawed at her throat, making it impossible to think straight. She had heard the stories about him. Ruthless, unforgiving, a man with more enemies than friends, a man who built empires on blood. Why would he care about her? About her ultrasound? Unless he thought it was his. The thought made her dizzy. She wanted to laugh, to cry, to collapse all at once. It was absurd. They had never met, never spoken. And yet, he had reacted as though the image belonged to him. Alina didn't answer. She curled up on the bed, clutching the pillow to her chest, rocking slightly as the night crept in around her. Sleep was impossible. Every sound from outside made her flinch. Every car horn felt like a warning. She kept checking the window. Certain headlights would appear. Certain footsteps would come closer. By morning, her body ached from tension. She dragged herself to the tiny kitchen, tried to pour a glass of water, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking. That was when the sound came. Not from her phone this time. From outside. The low, vibrating thrum of rotor blades. She froze, glass slipping from her fingers and shattering across the floor. Heart hammering, she stumbled to the window. And there it was. A helicopter. Not in the sky above some distant place, but right there, descending onto the empty lot across the street. The noise was deafening, whipping her hair into her face, making her squint against the rush of wind. Her phone buzzed again. She didn't need to look. She knew who it was. Come now. Her legs nearly gave out. She grabbed the edge of the counter, staring at the words that burned across the screen. She couldn't breathe. Her eyes darted between the helicopter and the glowing letters. This couldn't be real. It couldn't. And yet, the helicopter didn't vanish when she blinked. The phone didn't lie. Someone pounded on her door. The sound jolted her into motion. She backed away, shaking her head, whispering no over and over again. She wasn't ready. She wasn't strong enough. The pounding came again, harder this time. Miss Alina, a voice called, muffled but sharp, carrying authority. It's time to go. Her throat closed. She pressed herself against the wall, eyes darting to the fire escape, to the tiny window above the sink, to anywhere that could be an escape route. But deep down, she knew there was none. They had come for her. And once he wanted you, there was no running. The door creaked as if it might splinter beneath the fists outside. She pressed her palms to her belly, to the tiny life hidden inside, her tears spilling freely now. She didn't know why he wanted her. She didn't know what he thought the child meant to him. But the way the walls shook with every knock told her one thing. This was only the beginning. The air inside the helicopter smelled of leather and metal and money. Alina sat rigid, her fingers knotted together so tightly her knuckles were white. The blades thundered above her head, each beat drumming against her ribs. She couldn't believe she was here, sitting opposite two men in black suits who hadn't spoken a single word since they pulled her from her apartment. Their faces were unreadable, their eyes hidden behind tinted glasses even though it was barely dawn. One of them had simply said, "Boss's orders," and she'd been ushered toward the machine waiting in the street as if her life didn't belong to her anymore. The city shrank beneath them. She pressed her forehead to the glass, the rooftops sliding away like dark puzzle pieces. For a moment, the world looked unreal, too still, too far to touch. A few tears slipped out before she could stop them. She wiped them fast, ashamed to let them see her break. Where were they taking her? What did he want? No one had told her. No one needed to. Everyone knew who he was. Roman D'Alessandro, the man who owned half the city's fear and all its silence. They said he never forgave, never forgot, and never explained twice. And now she was being taken to him, because of a mistake that had taken less than a second to make. Her phone buzzed again. One of the men handed it over, wordless. She hesitated, then took it with shaking fingers. The message was simple. Don't be afraid. She almost laughed. It felt cruel. How could she not be afraid? The helicopter landed on a rooftop surrounded by high walls and shadows. The rotors slowed, the noise fading into a distant hum as she was let out into the cool morning air. She clutched her coat around her, the wind biting through the thin fabric. A black car waited at the edge of the landing pad. Its doors opened automatically. She hesitated only a second before one of the suited men guided her forward, firm but not rough. The interior smelled faintly of tobacco and pine. Silence filled the space as they drove down winding roads, the sun struggling through a veil of gray clouds. They stopped at last before a mansion that looked more like a fortress. Iron gates swung open without a sound. The gravel crunched underfoot as she stepped out, her heart pounding in her throat. Inside, one of the guards said quietly. She followed, her legs trembling. The doors opened onto a vast hall with marble floors and tall windows draped in heavy velvet curtains. Everything glowed gold under the morning light. It was beautiful and suffocating all at once. And then she saw him. Roman D'Alessandro stood near the grand piano, sleeves rolled to his elbows, a cup of coffee in his hand. He looked nothing like she'd imagined. No scars, no monstrous features. Just a man. Tall, composed, with eyes the color of cold steel and a calmness that didn't feel human. He glanced up as she entered, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. She wanted to look away, but couldn't. There was something about his gaze, detached, assessing, almost curious, like she was a puzzle he intended to solve. "Alina," he said at last. His voice was deep, smooth, not loud, but impossible to ignore. She swallowed. "You know my name?" He smiled faintly. "I make it my business to know things, especially about people who send me something unexpected." Her stomach turned. "It was a mistake. I didn't mean to. Send me an ultrasound photo?" He set his cup down, walking closer. "Tell me, how does one make such a mistake?" She stepped back, her breath catching. "I was trying to send it to a friend. I clicked the wrong name." That's all. His expression didn't change. "Do you have any idea what kind of men receive messages from strangers by mistake?" "I do now," she whispered. A flicker of amusement crossed his face. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could feel the quiet power radiating off him. You said it was a mistake, he murmured. But mistakes are interesting things. They reveal truths we don't mean to share. She blinked at him, confused. I don't understand what you think I've done. His gaze dropped briefly to her stomach, then back to her face. Whose child is it? Her knees almost gave out. It's not. It has nothing to do with you. Please, I don't know why you. He cut her off with a small motion of his hand. You don't know me. I don't know you. Yet you send me this image, then beg me not to be angry. What am I supposed to think? I told you it was a mistake. And I told you, he said softly, I don't believe in coincidences. The silence between them thickened. She could feel her pulse in her ears, loud and uneven. Something about his calmness frightened her more than shouting would have. Please, she whispered, her voice breaking. I just want to go home. He studied her for a long moment, then turned slightly, picking up a folder from a nearby table. Home isn't safe for you right now. Her head snapped up. What? What do you mean? Someone's been following you. My men noticed it when they went to bring you here. 2 cars, rotating positions. You didn't notice? She stared at him, confused and afraid. No. Why would anyone? Because, he said quietly, sliding the folder open. You have something they want. He placed a few photographs on the table between them. Blurred images. Men standing near her building. A black car parked across the street. Her figure, tiny and unaware, walking home. Her breath hitched. How do you have these? Because I watch everything, he said simply. She shook her head, trying to make sense of it. I don't understand any of this. I work at a clinic, I live alone, I don't. You work at the Green Cross Medical Center, he said, interrupting again. 3rd floor. You leave around 6 most nights, sometimes later when you're covering for the night nurse. Her chest tightened. How do you know that? Because the men who've been following you also know. And if they found out about this child. He paused, eyes narrowing slightly. They won't stop until they know who the father is. Her voice was barely a whisper. But you're saying they think it's you? He didn't answer. The silence said enough. Her head spun. This was insane. All of it. It's not true, she said quickly. I don't even know you. Roman's gaze softened slightly, almost imperceptibly. That's what makes it interesting. They think you do. And that puts both of us in danger. She could barely process his words. The room seemed to tilt. So, what happens now? He walked to the window, hands in his pockets. Now, you stay here until I decide it's safe for you to leave. What? She took a step forward. No, I can't stay here. I have a life, a job. You had a life, he said quietly. Now you have a situation. Her chest ached, a cold wave washing through her. She wanted to scream, but something about his tone told her it wouldn't matter. He turned to face her again. You'll have a room here. My staff will take care of you. You'll be safe. And if I refuse? She asked, her voice trembling. He smiled, not cruelly, but in a way that made her knees weaken. You won't. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, and somewhere far below, the faint echo of the city carried on without her. Finally, he stepped closer, lowering his voice. I didn't ask for this, Alina. But since fate decided to drop you into my world, I'll make sure you leave it alive. Her heart pounded so hard it hurt. She wanted to believe him, to trust the strange calm in his words. But the look in his eyes, sharp, unreadable, told her nothing was as simple as it seemed. And as the evening shadows lengthened across the marble floor, she realized something even more terrifying than being in his house. For the first time since the mistake, she wasn't entirely sure she wanted to leave. The first night in Roman D'Alessandro's house felt endless. Alina couldn't tell if it was fear or exhaustion that kept her awake. Every sound echoed through the silence. Footsteps in the hallway, doors closing somewhere far away, the low hum of the night. She sat by the window of her room, staring out at the dark forest that surrounded the mansion like a living wall. Somewhere out there, she thought, was the world she used to belong to, the life she had lost in a single message. She couldn't understand any of it. Why would strangers follow her? Why did the Mafia boss think she was involved in something more than a mistake? The questions kept her awake until the first light touched the curtains. The next morning, a woman in a black uniform entered her room carrying breakfast. She spoke little, her face expressionless. Alina tried to ask questions. Where she was exactly, what was going to happen. But the woman only said, "Mr. D'Alessandro will see you after breakfast." She barely ate. The tray sat untouched as she stared at her reflection in the mirror. Pale face, tired eyes, a faint tremor in her hands. She didn't recognize herself anymore. When the door opened again, two men in suits were waiting. They didn't speak, only gestured for her to follow. Her heart raced as she walked through long corridors of polished stone and gold-framed paintings, each step echoing in the heavy silence. Roman was waiting in a large study, sunlight spilling across the bookshelves. He looked as calm as ever, standing behind a desk littered with papers. A faint smile touched his lips when she entered. "Sleep well?" he asked. She didn't answer. Her throat felt dry. He motioned toward a chair. "Sit." She hesitated but obeyed. He studied her for a long moment before sliding a file across the desk toward her. "Look." She opened it with trembling fingers. Inside were documents, photos, reports, all about her. Her job history, her college records, her address, even her medical file from the clinic. She looked up, eyes wide. You went through my life?" He tilted his head slightly. "I needed to know who you are." "But why?" she demanded. "I told you it was a mistake." He leaned back, clasping his hands together. "You did. And I believe you, partly." Her stomach tightened. "What does that mean?" "It means," he said slowly, "someone wanted me to believe otherwise." She blinked. "What?" He turned a photograph around and pushed it toward her. A man's face stared up at her. Middle-aged, slick hair, a scar across his cheek. "Do you know him?" Roman asked. She shook her head. "No. He's been following you for weeks. Works for a man named Victor Salvi." The name meant nothing to her, but the way he said it made her blood run cold. Roman's gaze was sharp. "Victor used to work for me, until he decided to sell secrets to my enemies. I've been hunting him for 2 years. Now suddenly, he sends one of his men to follow a woman who happens to send me a message implying she's carrying my child." Alina's mouth went dry. "You think this is some kind of setup?" "I think," he said softly, "someone wants to make me believe you're connected to me. That you matter. That you're leverage." Her head spun. "But that's insane. I don't even know these people." "I know." His tone was calm, too calm, which makes it more dangerous. It means you're an innocent piece in someone else's game. She looked down at the photo again, fear twisting inside her. "So what happens now?" Roman's jaw tightened. "Now I find out why Victor wants you. And until then, you don't leave this house." She looked up sharply. "You can't keep me here." He gave a faint smile. "You're right. I can't. But if you leave, they'll find you, and they won't ask as nicely as I did." Her breath came unevenly. The thought of those faceless men watching her every move made her skin crawl. He stood walking around the desk until he was beside her. His presence was overwhelming, steady but dangerous. "I'm not your enemy, Alina," he said quietly. "But if I'm going to protect you, I need to know everything. The truth." No matter how small she hesitated, tears stinging her eyes. "I've told you the truth. The baby's father. He left. I don't even know where he is anymore. He's not part of this." Roman studied her face, searching for any flicker of deceit. Then he nodded once, stepping back. "All right. We'll see." He turned away, signaling that the conversation was over. But something in his voice, a quiet uncertainty, told her he wasn't entirely convinced. Over the next few days, the house became her cage. She was allowed to walk in the garden under the watchful eyes of guards. Meals arrived on time, perfectly arranged, but the silence was heavier than she could bear. She caught glimpses of Roman sometimes, in the hallways, on the balcony, talking in low tones with his men. Each time, their eyes met for a fraction of a second, and she couldn't tell if he was watching her for protection or suspicion. One evening, after another restless day, she found herself drawn to the sound of piano music drifting through the corridor, soft, haunting notes that didn't match the man she thought he was. She followed the sound to a dimly lit room. Roman sat at the piano, his sleeves rolled, his fingers moving effortlessly across the keys. She hesitated at the doorway. He didn't turn. "Did you play before?" he asked without looking up. She froze. How did you know I was here?" He smiled faintly. "No one sneaks in my house." "I wasn't sneaking," she said quickly. "I just heard the music." He looked up then, and for the first time his expression wasn't guarded. There was a weariness in his eyes, something that almost looked human. "Do you play?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, my mother did. She taught at a small school before she passed." He nodded, looking back at the piano. Music tells the truth people try to hide. She watched him silently. For a moment, she forgot where she was, who he was. He looked like a man lost in a memory. Finally, he stopped playing and turned to her. "You're afraid of me." She hesitated. "Shouldn't I be?" He studied her, his gaze unreadable. "I could hurt you if I wanted to." "But I won't. Why?" she whispered. He paused, as if the answer surprised him too. "Because you remind me of something I lost a long time ago." Her chest tightened, though she didn't know why. She wanted to ask what he meant, but before she could, one of his men entered the room quickly, whispering something in his ear. Roman's expression hardened instantly. "What is it?" she asked. He didn't answer her. He turned to the guard. "Bring the car." Now Alina stood, confused and frightened. "What's happening?" Roman looked at her, his voice suddenly sharp. "They found the man following you." "He's dead." She felt her knees weaken. "Dead? But there's more," he said grimly. "He had your name written on a note. And next to it, a symbol Victor uses when he wants someone erased." The room seemed to spin around her. Roman stepped closer, his tone low, dangerous. "It means you were never bait, Alina. You were the target her breath caught. Why would anyone want me dead? That," he said, eyes narrowing, "is what I intend to find out." As the guards moved around them, preparing for whatever came next, Alina realized that her mistake, that one message sent to the wrong man, might have saved her life instead of ruining it. But she didn't know yet that the truth behind that ultrasound would soon tear apart everything Roman thought he knew about her, about his past, and about the secrets buried deep in his empire. Rain started just after midnight. The sound of it against the tall windows filled the silence of the mansion like a restless heartbeat. Alina couldn't sleep. The words Roman had spoken, "You were the target," looped in her head again and again. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that folder of photographs, the blurred faces watching her from the shadows, the symbol drawn next to her name. She slipped out of bed and walked to the window. Beyond the glass, the courtyard shimmered with water. Somewhere out there, guards paced in the dark. She hugged herself, wondering how her ordinary life had unraveled into this. A knock came at the door. Before she could answer, Roman's voice said quietly, "It's me." She hesitated, then opened the door. He stood there without his jacket, rain still glistening on his shoulders, the look in his eyes different, less cold, more human. "I didn't wake you, did I?" "I wasn't sleeping," she said. "You went out?" He nodded, stepping inside, to where they found the body. "I needed to see it myself. And it wasn't just a message," he said. "It was bait. Whoever killed him wanted me to know he'd been following you. They wanted me to bring you out of hiding. Why? I don't know yet. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. But I know who might. Watch, he said. A black car stopped at the curb. A man got out, the same scarred face from the photograph, but he wasn't alone. Another man exited the passenger side, shorter, wearing a cap pulled low. The camera caught only a partial profile, but something about the angle made Alina's stomach tighten. Roman zoomed in. Do you recognize him? She leaned forward, squinting. Then she froze. The breath left her body. It was the father of her child. She stared at the screen, her pulse pounding. That can't be. Roman's voice softened. You know him. She nodded slowly, barely able to speak. His name's Ethan. He disappeared months ago. No calls, no messages. I thought he just didn't want to be part of this. Roman's eyes narrowed. He worked for Victor. Her head snapped up. No, that's impossible. He did, Roman said quietly. Under a different name. He was Victor's messenger. Low level, but trusted. If Victor wanted to plant something close to me, he would send someone harmless. Someone who could reach a place I'd never look. Like you. Alina pressed her hand to her mouth, shaking her head. You're saying he used me? I'm saying, Roman replied. Victor knew exactly what he was doing. That ultrasound wasn't just bait for me, it was insurance. If things went wrong, he could claim his man left behind something that tied to me. Roman sat opposite her, his voice gentler now. You didn't know. I can see that tears blurred her vision. I should have. There were signs. He always asked about where I worked, about the people who came in for treatment. I thought he was just curious. Roman leaned forward, resting his arms on his knees. You couldn't have known. People like Victor use kindness as camouflage. For a moment they sat in silence, the rain whispering against the glass. Then Roman said, Ethan's still alive. The second man at that scene wasn't him. He's hiding. But I'll find him. Alina looked up, startled. What will you do when you find him? Roman's eyes met hers. That depends on what he's done. And on what you want. She didn't answer. She didn't know what she wanted anymore. Part of her still remembered Ethan's smile, the way he'd held her hand the first time she showed him the pregnancy test. The other part remembered the fear, the sudden silence when he vanished, the endless days waiting. Roman stood, moving to the window. There's something else. The men who killed the follower. They left another message. Alina's voice trembled. He wants me? He wants what the child represents, Roman said. Leverage. I'll make sure he never gets it. She looked at him, fear and gratitude tangled together. Why are you helping me? You don't even know me. He turned to face her, and for a heartbeat something unguarded passed across his expression. Because once, a long time ago, someone tried to use a woman I cared about the same way. I failed her. I won't fail again. She wanted to say something, but the words caught in her throat. That night, neither of them slept. Roman stayed in his study, surrounded by maps and screens, tracking leads, calling contacts. Alina paced her room until exhaustion forced her to sit. Each hour stretched longer than the last. Just before dawn, there was movement in the courtyard. Engines, voices. A knock came at her door again, urgent this time. Miss Alina, come quickly. Who? Victor's men. The words made her blood run cold. Stay behind me, he ordered. The sound of gunfire cracked through the air outside. The guards returned fire from the windows. The mansion's serenity shattered into chaos. Roman guided her down a back hallway, through a hidden door that opened into a stone stairwell. Go, he said. It leads to the cellar. You'll be safe there. What about you? I have to make sure they don't take the house. She grabbed his arm, her voice shaking. You'll be killed. He gave a faint, almost amused smile. Not tonight. Before she could argue, he was gone. She stumbled down the stairwell, clutching the railing, her heart pounding. The sound of battle above was muffled but constant. She crouched behind crates in the dark cellar, every second feeling like an hour. Then, silence. It lasted too long. The door above creaked open. Footsteps echoed down the stairs, slow, deliberate, not Roman's. A flashlight beam cut through the darkness, sweeping across the room until it landed on her. "Hello, Alina," a voice said softly. It was Ethan. She froze. He looked different. Gaunt, eyes hollow, a thin scar across his jaw. But it was him. "I missed you," he said, stepping closer. "You weren't supposed to get caught up in this." She shook her head, backing away. "What did you do? Why are you here?" "I came to fix what Victor started. He wanted to use you, yes, but I didn't know he'd go this far. I swear, I tried to protect you. You lied to me." "I had to. If he knew I cared, he would have used you sooner." Tears welled in her eyes, anger and grief mixing until she could hardly breathe. "You disappeared, Ethan. You left me alone." "I thought you'd be safe," he whispered, "but then you sent that photo, and Roman saw it. You gave him exactly what Victor wanted, a reason to chase you." He reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "Don't." He looked pained. "Alina, listen to me. Roman isn't what you think. He's using you too. He'll never let you go." Before she could respond, another voice spoke from behind him. Calm, cold, lethal. She already tried to leave once. Didn't go well for the men who followed her. Roman stood at the base of the stairs, gun raised, soaked in rain and shadow. Ethan turned, panic flashing in his eyes. "You don't understand." "I understand enough," Roman said. "You brought them here. I came alone. Victor's on his way. He's using both of us." For a moment, no one moved. Rain dripped from Roman's coat, echoing in the silence. Alina's chest tightened as she looked between them, the man she'd once loved and the man who had become her only protection. Roman's voice dropped lower. "You're going to tell me where he is." Ethan swallowed hard. "If I do, he'll kill me." "If you don't," Roman said, "I will." The two men stared at each other, the air thick with tension. Finally, Ethan nodded. "There's a warehouse on the east docks. He's waiting there. He said he wants the girl delivered by sunrise." Roman glanced at Alina, his expression unreadable. "Then we're out of time." He motioned toward the stairs. "You're coming with me." "What? No." "It's the only way to end this," he said firmly. "If we don't face him now, he'll keep coming." Ethan stepped forward. "Roman, please. Let me go instead. She doesn't belong in this." Roman's reply was a quiet snarl. "You made sure she did the moment you lied to her." He turned to Alina again.